But Joe didn't do all this alone. There are an awful lot of people in this room, from AV, the cafeteria, to the geography staff, to every division of the society that participated, and people like Kit Salter, Jim Binko, Brock Brown, Michael Levasseur, and I could go on forever. But travel played an incredible part of the success of Joe's programs. And Ann Judge loved to be a part of that process. And I can remember once we had a workshop in Seattle, environmental workshop, and I was flying to Alaska. And I agreed to step off the plane in Seattle, come and see them for the morning, hop back on and go to Alaska. And so I did. And when I got to where this group was, Ann gave me a very quick hello and then grabbed me and said, "You're helping." And so I helped pack, wrap 100 sandwiches, 100 bags of assorted chips, 200 cookies, soft drinks by the dozen. She even had the special orders written down. She knew who was allergic to what. She never missed a beat. Not one teacher got the wrong package. Classic Ann Judge. Nothing was impossible. Ann Judge could take on some pretty hefty opponents. Project Marco Polo, she took on the Navy. Now, stop for a moment and imagine, if you possibly can, Joe and Ann taking on the United States Navy. Well, maybe, but they did. See, Project Marco Polo was a fabulous project. It took kids, students, and teachers from all across the country, put them on Navy ships operating around the world, and gave them an experience they could not possibly get each year. They did that every summer. And every summer, the Navy braced themselves for a boatload of kids and teachers, mostly women. And they had to contend with Ann and Joe. Nothing was sacred to Ann and Joe. Navy-style discipline, formations, bells, whistles, regulations, forget it. The Navy got a whole new perspective on life on board with civilians, and even some of the Navy's most grizzled sailors would laugh and smile at their antics. Many were touched by Ann and Joe. So many, in fact, that the Navy has made a proposal to the United States Board of Geographic Names to have 2 seamounts named. One to be called the Ann Judge Seamount and one to be called the Joseph Ferguson Seamount. A formal announcement will be made of that officially next year. The Navy hopes that helps leaven our sorrow in some way. Was Marco Polo successful? I'll give you 2 examples. There was a young girl named Natalie Dugans. She was 10 or 12 years old 10 years ago. She was an Afro-American from a rural area in North Carolina, and she was chosen to go on Marco Polo. She had a good time. She participated. It became an important part of her life. But Ann never heard from her after Marco Polo that 10 years ago. She's majoring in journalism and chemistry and is a senior in North Carolina. Sunday, she boarded a bus, took it to Washington, attended the service, returned to North Carolina that day. And then there was a young kid in 1995 named Joe Cabagon. He was from Hawaii. He was so sheltered, he had never even been across his island. But he went with the Navy. And he, like most of them, were seasick. But he really liked the Navy. And one day he said to Anne, while he was seasick, he said, "I'm going to join the Navy just as soon as I can." And today, Midshipman First Class John Cabagon was excused from the yard, the Naval Academy, and he's here today. John, where are you? One more Marco Polo story. This one was in Italy. The ship was coming into an area so that the group could visit a festival in Calabria, high up in the mountains. It's a little mountain village. Well, the Navy couldn't find a suitable harbor. And so Anne went to the bridge and she whined, she yelled, and she was outrageous. She probably promised on the next cover of the magazine. But the Navy relented. They pulled in at a location that was clearly not appropriate. Anne had hired the biggest bus she could find in Italy. And she took all the students and teachers, crowded them into this bus, and took off for this mountain village. Well, the roads were twisty. And they got more twisty. And they got more narrow. And soon, the bus couldn't go on any further. So Anne ordered everybody out and started walking to the top of this mountain. And pretty soon they began to hear the music. And it was the national anthem. And there wasn't a dry eye in the crowd. And around the corner comes this group of American kids and Ann Judge. And there, the American flag and the National Geographic flag were flying in the village square. And they presented Anne with a key to the town. I really regret missing that one. Photographers and Anne had a special relationship. She loved them all, and they loved her. And you may recall there was a book called The Bridges of Madison County. Clint Eastwood played the National Geographic photographer. Every photographer on the staff thought he was the model for that. And almost every photographer would snuggle up to Anne and say, "Anne, do you think they had me in mind when they created that character?" And to each one of them, Anne would wink, "Oh, well, you know it had to be you." Anne loved to dive into controversies, particularly policy at the Geographic. She'd come storming into my office and say, "Do you know what they've done now? They don't know what they're doing." And she'd unload on me, and then she'd leave. And it was then it dawned on me, they was me. Now, everyone knows the emergency number 911. My emergency number is 6691. Anne always used to do my travel arrangements. She seemed to know where I wanted to go even when I didn't. It was not unusual for me to call Anne and say, "Anne, I've got to go to Amsterdam on June 10th. Anne would call Karen, and I really was going to London on June 3rd. And one day, I thought Anne was out of town. I'd been told she was out with the geography education people. And so I called my friend Chris Galani, and I made reservations with Chris. Well, Anne was not out of town. Somehow she got the word. She came storming up to my office and said, "You don't love me anymore." Why didn't you call me? Is Chris your new girlfriend? Is she better than me? You could just see Ann with all the gestures. I don't think she ever believed I thought she was out of town. But was she my savior? I was always calling her. I can remember once I was stuck in the Hamburg airport. My plane was canceled, and I was trying to get home. Now, if you've ever been in Germany, when you've had a plane canceled, and there's a plane load of Germans all crowding around the counter, you know you're in trouble. They are not gentle tourists. I would rather face a herd of wildebeest than German tourists. What did I do? Casually walked to the telephone, call the office, 6691. I said, Ann, you got to get me out of here. Ann said, sit down, enjoy yourself, you'll get a message. So I'd sit down, and soon enough, a voice would come on the phone, would Mr. Grosvenor go to gate 13? And she not only would route me home sometimes off the beaten path, but she'd get me home. And classic Ann. She always knew I had frequent flyers on United Airlines, and whenever possible, she'd get me on United Airlines. You know, 6691, if we were an athletic institution, we'd retire the number 6691. We'd emblazon it on a banner and hoist it up to the ceiling forever. In a sense, I've done that. Thank you.